Zara was not the alien she once was. Once proud and respected, she now found herself alone on a barren planet, far from the people she had called family. Her people, the Kyrians, had once been a great and powerful race, commanding respect across the galaxy. But after a mission gone wrong, everything changed. Zara had failed, and her people, the ones she had sworn to protect, turned their backs on her. The planet she now stood on was nothing like the lush worlds she had known. The sky above was a sickly orange, filled with dark clouds that seemed to forever block the sun. The ground beneath her feet was cracked and dry, like the lifeless, forgotten bones of a long-dead creature. She walked alone, scavenging for food. Hoping to survive just one more day, her people had abandoned her here, left her to fend for herself on this desolate world. When she had pleaded for help, when she had begged for a crumb of mercy, her calls had gone unanswered. No ships came, no voice replied. The Kyrians were silent, too busy with their own ambitions to care about a fallen soldier. The harsh truth sank deep into her heart. She was forgotten, a nobody in the eyes of her kind. Zara had always been strong. She had been a warrior, a leader who fought to protect her people. But now, with nothing left to fight for, she found herself questioning her worth. What was the point of her strength, if it had only led to this moment? Was there any honor in being abandoned and forgotten? She sat on a large rock, looking out over the barren landscape, feeling the weight of loneliness pressing on her chest. The hunger gnawed at her, but it wasn't the hunger for food that hurt the most. It was the hunger for connection, for someone to acknowledge her existence. She had fought alongside her people for so long, sacrificing so much, only to be discarded when she had nothing left to offer. How could they turn their backs on her so easily? But despite the pain, Zara knew she couldn't give up. She had survived this long, and she would continue to fight, even if it meant doing so alone. As the sun began to set, casting an eerie glow, across the landscape, Zara heard something in the distance. It was faint, but there was no mistaking it a sound of movement, the rustling of something through the tall, dry grasses. Her ears perked up, and her hand instinctively went to the small weapon she carried at her side, a last resort in case of danger. She stood, her heart pounding in her chest, and slowly crept toward the noise. Every step was calculated, each footfall quiet, as she prepared herself for whatever might come. It could be a creature, a predator, or even another scavenger. She didn't care. In this empty, unforgiving world, she would take any interaction, even if it meant risking her life. The sound grew louder, and Zara's eyes narrowed. She could just make out the silhouette of a figure moving through the field. Human. She didn't know why a human would be on this planet, but she recognized the shape of the figure as it drew closer. Her pulse quickened as the figure emerged from the shadows, and she froze. The human was tall, with dark hair and a rugged appearance, clearly someone who had been through hardships, just like her. His clothing was worn, and his eyes, though alert, looked kind. He didn't carry any weapon that she could see, and he didn't seem to be a threat. But still, she was cautious. "Who are you?" Zara's voice came out sharper than she intended, a mixture of surprise and suspicion in her tone. She didn't trust easily anymore. The man stopped, his eyes studying her for a moment before he spoke. "I'm Alex," he said, his voice steady, yet laced with curiosity. "What are you doing out here?" Zara didn't answer immediately. She was too surprised. She hadn't expected to see another living being, especially not a human. Humans weren't known for their bravery when it came to venturing into alien territories, certainly not into places as hostile as this. She had heard stories, but now she stood before one, a human who was oddly standing in front of her, unafraid. "I'm surviving," she finally said, her voice quieter now. Alex nodded, his gaze softening. "Looks like you've had it rough." Zara didn't know how to respond to that. She had been through so much, and yet this man, this stranger, seemed to understand her struggle just by looking at her. It felt strange to be seen, to be acknowledged. She had forgotten what it felt like to be treated like more than just a weapon or a failure. "I can help you," Alex said suddenly, his voice calm and sure. "I've got some supplies, if you need them." Zara's eyes narrowed. She couldn't understand why a human would help her. What did he want from her? He had no reason to care about her, no reason to offer kindness to an alien, let alone one from a species like hers. "You don't have to," she said, stepping back. "I don't need your help." But Alex didn't move, his expression unchanged. "Everyone needs help sometimes," he said. "Even you." Zara's heart fluttered slightly at the words. She had heard them before, from her commanders, from her family, but it never felt real. Now, hearing it from a stranger, someone who had no reason to care for her, made her question everything she had known. Was it possible that someone could care for her, even if she had nothing to give in return? "I don't expect anything in return," Alex added, his gaze steady. "I just don't want to see anyone suffer if I can help." Zara stared at him for a long moment, unsure of what to do. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, she felt a glimmer of something she had thought she had lost forever: hope. Zara couldn't believe what she was hearing. A human standing before her, offering help without any hesitation. She had learned long ago not to trust anyone, especially not strangers. Her people had taught her that kindness was often a trick, a way to manipulate and control. But there was something different about this human. His words weren't empty. He wasn't asking for anything in return. Alex stood in front of her, waiting patiently for her response. His dark eyes held no fear. No judgment, just a quiet understanding. His face, weathered by the harsh conditions of this planet, was softened by something else. Was it genuine kindness? Or was he simply another scavenger looking for a way to survive in this harsh world? "You don't have to help me," Zara finally spoke, her voice trembling slightly, though she quickly masked it with pride. "Can survive on my own. I've been doing it for days." "I'm sure you can," Alex replied, his tone steady. "But no one should have to survive alone, not like this. I have food, water, and some other supplies. It won't be much, but at least it's something." Zara stared at him, her mind racing. She wanted to refuse. She wanted to stay strong, to prove that she didn't need anyone's charity. She was a warrior leader once. But those words, those simple words from a stranger, began to chip away at the walls she had built around her heart. "I don't need your pity," she said, her voice sharper than she intended. "I didn't ask for your help." Alex didn't flinch. He didn't react to her harsh words. He simply nodded, as though he had expected this. "I'm not offering pity," he said quietly. "I'm offering help because I can, and because everyone deserves it." Zara's heart ached at his words. No one had ever said anything like that to her, not in a long time. Not since her fall from grace, not since she had become nothing more than an outcast. She had been cast aside by her people, left to die alone on this forgotten planet. But here was a human, a species known for their selfishness, offering her something she had long lost, a chance to live, and perhaps something more. For a moment, Zara hesitated. The idea of accepting help, of trusting someone again, seemed dangerous. But the truth was, she was tired. Tired of being strong, tired of pretending she didn't need anything. The weight of her loneliness had become too much to bear. "I won't stay long," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Just enough to rest, then I'll leave." Alex smiled, the kind of smile that made Zara feel like maybe she wasn't as invisible as she had thought. "You're welcome to stay as long as you need, no pressure." He motioned for her to follow him, leading her toward a small makeshift shelter he had built near a rocky outcrop. The shelter was humble, just a few tarps and some metal scraps, arranged to block the harsh winds and rain. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep someone safe. Zara followed him, wary of the world around them. But her curiosity pulled her forward. Inside the shelter, Alex took out a few simple rations, handing them to Zara. She eyed the food for a moment, then took it, though she didn't eat right away. She was unsure of how to respond, how to act around this human who had shown her more kindness than anyone else ever had. Alex sat down across from her, pulling out a small flask of water. "I'm sure it's not the best," he said with a shrug, "but it's something." Zara took a sip of the water, still cautious but grateful. She hadn't realized how thirsty she had been. As she drank, she found herself wondering about this man. What had brought him here? What was he doing on a planet like this? "I'm not from here," Alex said, as if reading her mind. I was just passing through, looking for resources. The galaxy's a rough place these days. Zara nodded, knowing all too well the truth of his words. The galaxy was always changing, always shifting, and not always for the better. Her people had been a part of that, expanding their influence and power, but it had come at a cost. Zara had seen the price of that ambition: millions of lives lost, countless systems destroyed, all in the name of power. And for what? I used to have a home, Zara said quietly, her eyes distant. I used to be someone. I was part of something bigger than myself. But now, she stopped herself, not wanting to say more. She didn't know this human, and she certainly didn't want to burden him with her story. But Alex seemed to sense her pain, and he didn't press her further. Instead, he offered a comforting silence, a presence that didn't demand anything from her. I know what it's like to lose everything, Alex said softly. I've been there. But sometimes, you have to keep going. You have to find a reason to keep moving forward. Zara looked up at him, surprised by his honesty. She had expected a human to be afraid, to avoid anything that seemed out of place or too dangerous. But Alex was different. He wasn't afraid of her, nor did he seem to care about her past. All he cared about was helping her survive. Why? Zara asked, her voice barely a whisper. Why do you care? Alex met her gaze, his eyes steady. Because it's the right thing to do. Because even when everything seems lost, you have to believe there's something worth fighting for. Zara looked down at the food in her hands, her thoughts swirling. She had never imagined that someone, let alone a human, would speak to her like this. She had spent so long believing she was beyond help, beyond redemption. But here she was, sitting in a shelter with a stranger who had given her something more valuable than food, hope. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, Zara allowed herself to relax. She didn't have to be strong all the time. She didn't have to carry the weight of the galaxy on her shoulders. For now, she could simply exist here with this human, who had shown her a kindness she never expected. As she took a bite of the food, she realized that maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for her after all. Chance to start over, to find something worth fighting for again. And in that moment, she realized that it wasn't just survival she was looking for. It was something more. Something that Alex had already begun to give her. Something that for the first time in her life, she was willing to accept. The days passed slowly on the desolate planet. The harsh winds howled through the barren landscape. The sky above remained an endless shade of orange, almost as if it were mocking their struggles. Zara and Alex found a rhythm in their days. Alex would scavenge for supplies during the early hours. Zara, though reluctant at first, would assist him, learning to navigate the dangerous terrain of the planet. They worked together in silence, but there was a growing bond between them. Something unspoken, yet undeniable. For the first time in a long while, Zara felt like she wasn't completely alone. Alex had brought her something she had long forgotten: trust. She had learned to depend on her own strength, but now, with him beside her, she realized that strength didn't have to mean isolation. She didn't need to do everything by herself. Evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a blood-red hue across the sky, they sat around a small fire. The warmth from the fire was a welcome relief against the chill of the night. Zara stared into the flames, the flickering light reflecting in her eyes. I used to lead, Zara said quietly, breaking the silence. Her voice held a hint of bitterness, but also a deep sorrow. I was a commander in my people's army. I fought for them, I led them into battle, and they trusted me. She paused, her fingers absent-mindedly tracing the dirt beneath her. And now, I'm nothing. Alex sat quietly watching her. He had heard bits and pieces of her story, but not enough to understand the full weight of her past. He didn't push her to share more, but he knew there was more beneath the surface. He had been through his own struggles, but he had never faced the kind of pain that Zara carried. He couldn't fully understand her, but he respected her strength. Even if she didn't see it. You're not nothing, Alex finally said, his voice steady. You're more than just a soldier. You've survived all of this world. Your past, everything. That takes strength. And strength doesn't come from what others think of you, but from what you do for yourself. Zara looked up at him, surprised by his words. She had spent so much time in the shadow of her past, believing that her worth was defined by what she had lost. But here in this moment, Alex was offering her something different, a chance to see herself beyond the failures and the battles she had fought. He was showing her that she was more than just a weapon or a leader. She was a person. "I've spent so much time trying to fix the past," Zara admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know how to move forward. I don't know if I can." "You don't have to fix everything," Alex said softly. "You just have to take the next step. And sometimes, that's all you can do." Zara felt a lump in her throat. She had never heard anything like this before. She had been trained to be strong, to lead, to fight. But now, in the quiet company of this human, she realized that there was more to life than just survival. There was a different kind of strength, one that wasn't about fighting, but about being vulnerable and allowing someone else to help. Over the following days, their relationship continued to deepen. They shared stories, laughter, and the occasional silence that spoke more than words ever could. Alex had become her rock, the one person she could rely on. And despite the doubts that still lingered in her heart, Zara found herself feeling something she had thought was long gone: hope. One afternoon, as they explored the rocky hills surrounding their shelter, Zara noticed something strange in the distance. A faint, dark shape was moving across the horizon. At first, she thought it was just a mirage, a trick of the light in the endless desert. But as they got closer, the shape grew clearer, something large, mechanical. Alex squinted into the distance, his hand shielding his eyes from the sun. "Is that ... a ship?" he asked, his voice laced with disbelief. Zara's heart skipped a beat. She had seen that shape before. It was unmistakable, a warship from her own people, the Kyrians. The ship was hovering above the ground, scanning the planet, likely searching for her. It hadn't been long since her people had sent a fleet to find her to bring her back, but she had never expected to see them this soon. "It's them," Zara muttered, her voice darkening with fear and uncertainty. "My people, they've come for me." Alex looked at her, his face filled with concern. "Are you going to go with them?" he asked gently. Zara stood frozen for a moment, her mind racing. She had never wanted to go back. Her people had abandoned her, cast her aside like she was nothing. She had no loyalty to them anymore. But even so, the thought of seeing them again, the thought of confronting her past, filled her with dread. "No," she finally said, her voice firm, though a flicker of uncertainty remained in her eyes. "I won't go back. Not to them." The decision felt heavy, but it was also freeing. Zara realized that her past, her identity as a commander and a warrior, no longer defined her. She had a choice now. She could choose to walk away from everything she had known and find something new, something better. But as the ship drew closer, Zara felt a new wave of panic. What if they refused to let her go? What if they forced her to return, dragged her back to the life she had left behind? "They're coming for me, Alex," Zara said, her voice trembling slightly. Alex stepped closer, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Then we'll fight. Together." Zara looked at him, surprised by his confidence. "Don't know what they're capable of. My people are powerful, ruthless." "I don't care about their power," Alex said, his voice steady. "We have something they don't teach other." Zara felt a strange warmth fill her chest. In that moment, she knew Alex was right. They might be outnumbered, they might be on a strange, hostile world, but they had each other, and that was enough. As the warship loomed closer, Zara made a choice. She wasn't going to face her past alone. She wasn't going to let it dictate her future. With Alex by her side, she was ready to take on whatever came next. The ship's shadow loomed larger, growing closer with every passing moment. Zara's heart raced as she stood beside Alex, her thoughts swirling in a mixture of fear and uncertainty. The Kyrian warship was a reminder of everything she had left behind: her status, her people, her entire identity, and now they were coming for her. "I never wanted to see them again," Zara said quietly, her voice trembling just slightly. but here they are. Alex stood by her side, his presence solid and comforting. You don't have to face them alone, he said, his voice calm and steady. We'll figure this out together. Zara looked at him, surprised by how certain he was. He had no idea what the Kyrians were capable of. She had been raised to believe they were invincible, cold, and calculating. Her people were masters of war, their power unmatched by any other species. They had cast her aside like an old tool, when she was no longer useful, and now they would surely demand her return. I don't know what they want from me, Zara admitted, her voice filled with doubt. I don't know if I can fight them. I used to be their leader, but now... She shook her head. Now I'm just a nobody. They won't see me the same way. Alex reached out and placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You're not a nobody, Zara. You're someone who's been through more than most could even imagine. That strength doesn't go away just because someone doesn't see it. Zara's eyes softened as she looked at him. He was right, in a way. She had always defined herself by what she could do for others, by her position in the Kyrian hierarchy. But now, with Alex standing beside her, she realized that maybe her worth wasn't tied to her past. Maybe it wasn't tied to her military rank or her people's expectations. Maybe it was enough to simply exist, to be who she was now, in this moment. I don't know if I'm strong enough, she whispered. Alex smiled, a quiet confidence in his eyes. You don't have to be strong all the time. You just need to be who you are. Zara didn't respond immediately. She wasn't sure if she fully understood what Alex meant, but in her heart, she could feel something beginning to shift. Perhaps. She had been wrong to believe that strength was only found in fighting, in always being the one in control. Maybe true strength came from letting go, from allowing herself to trust and lean on others when needed. Alex had shown her that his quiet strength, his willingness to help, without asking for anything in return. As the ship drew closer, Zara's anxiety returned. The warship was massive, its engines humming with power as it hovered above the planet. She could see the markings on its hull, now the symbols of the Kyrian fleet. They had come for her. We have to make a choice, Zara said, her voice tight. I can't go back. I won't go back to them. Alex nodded, his hand still on her shoulder. Then we don't go back. We fight. Zara looked at him, her gaze steady. But I don't have a ship. I don't have an army. How can we fight them? We don't need to fight them with guns or ships, Alex replied. We fight with our will. We stand our ground. We show them that we're not afraid. Zara stared at him for a long moment, weighing his words. It was a risky choice, but it was the only one she had. She had nothing left to lose. She had already lost her place in the Kyrian society, her people's respect, and her sense of self. But she hadn't lost her will to live. And she hadn't lost the one thing that truly mattered anymore, the bond she shared with Alex. You're right, she said softly. We don't have to fight them with weapons. We fight with what's left of us. The warship hovered above them now, casting a large shadow over the ground. It was close enough that Zara could see the figures moving inside the ship's windows, the soldiers who had once been her comrades, but now they felt like strangers. They were part of a world she no longer belonged to. A loud mechanical thud echoed through the air as the ship's landing gear touched the ground. The door to the ship opened with a hiss, and a group of Kyrian soldiers descended, their armor gleaming in the dim light of the planet. They were led by a tall figure, a commander with a harsh, calculating look on his face. Zara's heart sank as she recognized him. General Zorak. The one who had stripped her of her rank, the one who had ordered her exile. He was the reason she had been abandoned on this planet to die. Zara, Zorak's voice rang out, cold and demanding, you are to return with us immediately. You've been summoned by the High Command. Your fate will be decided in front of the Council. Zara stood tall, despite the fear that gripped her heart. She had imagined this moment 1,000 times, but now that it was real, she found herself questioning her decision. What if returning meant facing punishment, even death? What if the council decided she was a failure, unworthy of being part of the Kyrian race? I won't go back with you, Zara said firmly, her voice stronger than she expected. I'm not your pawn anymore, Zorak. I'm not a part of your empire. Zorak sneered, stepping closer. You have no choice, Zora. You're a traitor. The council will decide your fate. I don't need the council to decide who I am, Zara replied, her voice unwavering. And I don't need your empire. I have something now that your empire can never offer me. Zorak's eyes narrowed in anger. And what is that? I have a choice, Zora said, her gaze shifting to Alex, who stood by her side, unafraid. I choose to live. I choose my own path. The Kyrian soldiers around them shifted uncomfortably. Unsure of how to respond, Zorak, however, did not back down. You will regret this, Zara, he warned. But Zara stood tall, feeling a sense of peace she had never known before. She had made her choice, and no matter what happened next, she knew she was no longer bound by her past. As the warship's engines roared to life, Zara turned away from Zorak and the soldiers, her resolve as strong as ever. She didn't need the approval of the Kyrians. She had Alex by her side, and that was all she needed. The roar of the warship's engines echoed through the barren landscape, sending a chill down Zara's spine. The Kyrian soldiers had gathered around her, their eyes fixed on her with a mix of anger and disbelief. General Zorak stood at the forefront, his expression cold, as though he had already decided her fate. Zara stood her ground, her heart pounding in her chest. She had faced many battles in her life, but none like this. This was not a fight for survival or power. It was a fight for her freedom, for her right to choose her own destiny. And for the first time in her life, she knew that she wasn't fighting alone. Beside her, Alex stood with quiet strength. His presence was a constant comfort, reminding her that no matter what happened, they would face it together. Zara glanced at him, her eyes meeting his. There was no fear in his gaze, only a steady resolve. He had come into her life like a beacon, of light, offering her something she had long forgotten, the possibility of hope, of love. You are making a mistake, Zara, Zorak said, his voice laced with contempt. You were once a proud member of the Kyrian Empire. You were a leader. And now you throw it all away for a human, a mere scavenger. Zara felt the anger rise within her, but she kept her voice calm. I don't owe you or your empire anything, Zorak. You abandoned me. You left me to die. Now you think you can just demand my loyalty because of who you think I was? Zorak's face darkened. You are a traitor, and traitors must be punished. Zara's hands clenched into fists at her sides. She had been called a traitor before, but it no longer held the same weight. She wasn't fighting for her old position, for her people, or for any of the ideals they had once tried to instill in her. She was fighting for something much more precious, her freedom. And the love she had found with Alex was worth more than any title or power she had once held. I don't need your approval, she said, her voice growing stronger. I found something better. Something real. Zorak's eyes narrowed in anger. You're foolish. You don't understand the consequences of your actions. You think you can simply walk away from everything. Feeling the weight of his words. But she didn't flinch. I understand perfectly. I don't want the power, the status, or the control. I want to live my life, not as a soldier or a tool for your empire, but as a person who can choose her own path. Alex stepped forward, his presence calm but unwavering. And if she wants to walk away, then she will. No one has the right to force her to stay. Zorak looked at Alex with disdain. And you, human? You think you can protect her? You're nothing but a weak, insignificant creature. You don't belong here. Zora felt a surge of anger for Alex. How dare Zorak speak to him that way? Alex had given her more than anyone from her past ever had. He had shown her kindness, respect, and love when she had expected none. He was her equal, and nothing Zorak said could change that. But Alex didn't rise to the insult. Instead, he stood calmly, his eyes meeting Zorak's. I don't need to prove myself to you. What matters is that Zara and I are together, and that's all that matters. For a moment, there was silence. The wind howled across the empty plains, the only sound the distant hum of the warship's engines. Zara felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She had made her choice. She knew that Alex had made his too. Zorak seemed to hesitate, perhaps, realizing that there was nothing more he could say to change her mind, but then his face twisted in fury. "You will regret this, Zara," he spat. "The Kyrian Empire does not forget its enemies. You will pay for this betrayal." "I don't care," Zara said firmly, her voice unwavering. "I'm done with the Empire. And if that means I have to face the consequences, then so be it. But I will face it with Alex by my side." Zorak's eyes flashed with anger, but he said nothing more. He motioned for the soldiers to fall back, and without another word, they turned and began to board the ship. Exra watched them go, a mixture of relief and sadness filling her heart. She had once been part of that world, part of that cold, unfeeling empire. But now, she had chosen a new life, a life where love and freedom came first. Alex stood beside her, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. "You did it," he said. "Softly, you made the right choice." Zara nodded, her heart still racing, but her mind clear. "I don't know what the future holds," she said, her voice steady now. "But I know one thing for sure. I don't want to live in fear anymore. I don't want to hide who I am, or who I love." Alex smiled, a warmth spreading through his chest. "Then we'll face whatever comes next together. I promise you that." Zara turned to him, her heart swelling with emotion. She had been alone, struggling to survive on her own. But now, with Alex by her side, she felt a sense of peace she had never known. She wasn't alone anymore. And no matter what challenges they faced in the future, she knew they would face them together. As the warship slowly lifted off into the sky, disappearing into the distance, Zara felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The past was behind her. The future was uncertain, but it was also filled with possibilities. And for the first time in her life, she felt truly free. The warship disappeared into the distance, leaving behind only the haunting silence of the barren planet. Zara stood in the same spot, her gaze fixed on the sky where the ship had once hovered. The storm that had been swirling within her now felt calmer, as if something had shifted inside her. She had made her choice, and for the first time in years, she felt a sense of peace. Beside her, Alex stood quietly, his presence a steady comfort. He didn't say anything at first, just stood by her side, allowing her the time she needed. Wind had picked up, and Zara could feel the cold bite of it against her skin, but it no longer bothered her. In fact, she welcomed it. It was a reminder that she was still alive, still capable of facing the world, even if it was a world that was so different from the one she had known. "I didn't think it would be this easy," Zara said softly, her voice almost lost in the wind. "I thought I would feel regret or fear, but I don't." Alex glanced at her, his expression gentle. "You made the right choice, Zara. You chose to live for yourself. That's something a lot of people never get to do." Zara turned to face him, her eyes meeting his. She had heard those words before, but never in the way he spoke them. It wasn't just a simple statement. It was a belief, a deep understanding that he had, not just about her, but about the world itself. He had chosen to live for himself too, even when it meant walking away from everything he knew. "I don't know what's next," Zara admitted, her voice filled with a quiet uncertainty. "I don't know what kind of life we can have. What we'll do now that the Empire's gone. Everything is different now." "That's the thing about new beginnings," Alex said, his voice calm. "You don't have to know everything. You just have to take the first step, and the rest will follow." Zara smiled, a small but genuine smile. She had never thought of it that way before. For so long, she had been obsessed with having all the answers, with knowing every step before she took it. But now, for the first time in a long while, she realized that it was okay to not have all the answers. The future was a blank page, and it was hers too, right? "I never thought I would find peace again," Zara said, her voice almost a whisper. "But now, I think I can." Alex reached out, placing his hand gently on her arm. "You will. We both will." For a moment, they stood in silence, watching as the last traces of the warship disappeared into the sky. The planet around them was still harsh and unwelcoming, but Zara no longer saw it as a place of exile. It was a place of possibility, a place where she could start over, Do you ever wonder what life would be like if we didn't have to worry about the past? Zara asked, her voice thoughtful. All the time, Alex replied with a small laugh. But then I remember that the past is what brought us here, together, and I wouldn't change that. Zara nodded. She had been thinking the same thing. The past was something she couldn't escape, but it didn't have to define her anymore. It had shaped her, yes, but it was not the end of her story. The future was still waiting for her. For them both. We'll have to find a new place to live, Zara said, her voice full of determination. Somewhere far away from all of this? Alex smiled. I'm with you, wherever that is. Zara felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words. For so long, she had been alone, cut off from everything and everyone. She had believed that. She was destined to live in the shadows of her past, that she would never escape the weight of her failures. But now, with Alex by her side, she realized that she wasn't alone anymore. She had found something worth living for, something worth fighting for. Together, they could build a life. A real life, one where they could be free from the chains of the past, free to choose their own path. The galaxy was vast, and there was so much out there waiting for them. I want to see the stars again, Zara said, her voice filled with hope. I want to feel like I'm part of something bigger than just survival. Alex turned to her, his eyes bright with the same hope. We will. We'll travel together, see the worlds we've never seen before. There's a whole universe out there, Zara, and we're going to explore it. Zara smiled, the weight in her heart lifting even more. She had once thought that the galaxy was a place of endless war, a place where only the strong survived. But now, she knew that it was a place of endless possibilities, where anything was possible. And for the first time in her life, she felt like she was truly free. We can do this, she said, her voice strong and confident, together. Alex's smile widened as he nodded. Together, as the two of them stood side by side, watching the sun dip lower on the horizon. Zara felt a deep sense of peace settle within her. The future was still unknown, but it didn't matter. She had Alex by her side, and together they would face whatever came next. The galaxy was vast, but for the first time in a long time, Zara felt ready to embrace it. They didn't need to have all the answers. They didn't need to know where their journey would take them. All they needed was each other, and the courage to take that first step into a new life. With that, Zara turned her gaze toward the distant stars, the ones she had once thought unreachable. She knew now that they were no longer out of her reach. The universe was waiting, and with Alex by her side, she was ready to begin the adventure of a lifetime.